Tonight, monster.
I never want him to leave Maryland again. I want him to die in a Maryland jail.
The illegal immigrant allegedly murders a mother of 5. Bill O'Reilly on whether Trump can make good on his promise to deport millions. Where are the parents?
Many of them say that they can't get off it.
The Surgeon General says he wants cigarette-like warning labels on social media sites, why it won't do any good. And Father's Day fail, what Chuck Schumer's grilling technique shows us all about Washington. Welcome to the fairest show on television this Monday night. It happened again, sadly. 1,800 miles from the border in Hartford County, Maryland, the sheriff blamed an illegal immigrant with a long rap sheet for killing a mother of 5, Rachel Morin.
I never want him to leave Maryland again. I want him to die in a Maryland jail. I want to now direct these comments to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and to every member in both chambers of Congress. The American citizens are not safe because of failed immigration policies.
Every member in both chambers. And the sheriff points out, rightly so, that the failures on immigration are not a Republican problem. They are not a Democratic problem. It is a failure of both chambers, both parties, presidents of both parties in the White House. The mother of 5 joins a long list of women killed by illegal immigrants. Molly Tibbetts was murdered while on a run in Iowa in 2018. Laken Riley was murdered while on a run in Athens, Georgia, back in February. And the conversation never really changes. We hear these names, but nothing changes. Republicans keep talking about it. Nothing happens. New polling from CBS News and YouGov finds 62% of registered voters support a new national program to deport all undocumented immigrants living in the United States illegally. And here's the kicker. 53% of Hispanic voters want to deport all illegal immigrants. 53% of Hispanics. It sounds surprising, but it's not really. For every Rachel Morin or Laken Riley, there are dozens, if not hundreds of Hispanics in America legally who are killed by Hispanics that are here illegally. That's just the way the numbers work. But you never hear about them. You hear about the pretty white women, which is understandable because how the media is. Right now, there are an estimated 16.8 million people in America illegally. Donald Trump says on day one, we will shut down the border and start deporting millions of Biden's illegal criminals. To Rachel Morin's family, and especially her 5 children, may God be with you. We've heard those promises before. To be fair, Trump deported a lot of people, more than Biden, who averages 994,000 a year. But Trump, when he was in office, even when he had both houses of Congress, both the House and the Senate, he averaged far less than Obama's 391,000. We started this by saying it happened again, meaning the killing of some completely innocent, pretty young white woman happened again at the hands of an illegal alien. It's going to keep happening. Criminals here illegally will keep killing pretty blondes and far more regular, far more non-pretty blondes that don't get nearly as much attention until something changes. Nobody knows that better than Bill O'Reilly. He's been talking about the need for this to change since the early 2000s. Host of the No Spin News, author of the upcoming book confronting the president's no spin assessments from Washington to Biden. And maybe that's where we start, right, Bill? You're for holding politicians of both parties accountable. That's what confronting the president's about. And this has been a failure of Republicans and Democrats going all the way back, to Reagan when we had the last, quote unquote, comprehensive immigration reform?
I would say the Democratic Party is far more guilty than the Republican Party, just to be fact-based. The reason that Trump didn't have to deport as many people is because his Remain in Mexico policy stopped the madness on the border to a tune of 800,000 in his last year. You cited 16.8 foreign nationals in the country right now with not proper paperwork. Well, that exploded under President Biden and the Democrats for 3.5 years. Their policy is insane. It's dangerous. Everybody knows it. Every honest person knows it. So the Republicans, they are caught because you have to do this legally, a deportation, and the federal government would stop any mass deportation. It would stop dead in the federal courts. And you have to do it in a humane way. You can't be dragging babies out of their homes. The emotional pull, and what it was, emotion. People go, oh, yeah, I want them all deported. Well, that's not going to happen. I have a solution to the problem because that's what I do. I just don't whine about things or point them out. So if Trump is elected president, and I say that because Biden will never do this, he would issue an executive order on day one that says if you are in the country without proper paperwork, okay, you must register at your local post office. You have 3 months to do it. We need to know who you are, where you are, and what your circumstance is. And it would be forms that you would walk in a post office and get. Fill them out. They go to the Department of Homeland Security. Now, I estimate about 50% of migrants would not fill those papers out. They are immediately subject to deportation. You don't send it in, warrants are issued, blanket warrants, and you get deported if you're caught without that paperwork, okay? So that's a start. We have to know who they are, where they are.
You can't do that with an executive order, Bill.
Yes, you can. You can say
you can't say that everybody who doesn't. You can't say that everybody who doesn't fill the form out is subject to immediate deportation with executive order.
Sure, you can. You absolutely can. Now it can be challenged, but you
right, and it's going to get overturned. You know that.
Man, I don't know about that. I think that comes under the executive powers. He can do that because he's not punishing anybody. He's asking for information that the government needs.
And if you don't give the information
about this, the murder of this young mother in Maryland was horrendous, obviously, and everybody knows that. The Laken Riley situation in Georgia, all right, where the University of Georgia co-ed was killed by a migrant, and there's really no doubt, even though he's pled not guilty, that puts Georgia into the Trump category as far as electoral votes are concerned. Biden will never win Georgia, ever, okay? He didn't even call when he could have the Riley family. Biden wouldn't pick up the phone. So this is going to reverberate big time come November. But it's not solvable because there's so many migrants here, but it's manageable. You can start to manage it. And I think Trump would. He'd have to if he gets reelected. He'd have to.
Okay, so you think that Donald Trump is going to be able to manage it in a way that George W. Bush wasn't, Bill Clinton didn't, Barack Obama didn't.
He did
Hold on. Here's you and Geraldo way back in the day. I think this was during the Bush administration. Take a listen.
He didn't commit a felony.
He doesn't have a right to be in his country.
What? But that has nothing to do with the fact that he was drunk.
He should have been deported. He should have been deported, and this mayor and a police chief didn't deport him.
And this was about a sanctuary city. I believe it was a DUI case. You haven't aged a day, okay? Geraldo, we can't say that about you. You look exactly the same.
Geraldo shot.
Yeah.
Look, Geraldo comes at it from a totally...
Yeah, Geraldo comes at it from a weird place. But here's the question. This is a little bit like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, right? That if we wanted to solve it, reasonable people could get in a room, they could make a deal that's not going to make the Israelis fully happy, it's not going to make the Palestinians fully happy. There's going to be a deal, and it's solved. The reason it's not solved is the same reason the immigration deal isn't solved. Trump had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and he was in the White House, and he still couldn't solve the immigration deal because it's better for Republicans to keep this as a cudgel, better for Democrats to keep it as a cudgel, not compromise on anything, than it is to solve the problems for the American people. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, of course not. That's why our country is declining, because we don't have problem solvers. But you're wrong. Trump, by executive order, Leland, put out the Remain in Mexico policy, which cut migration down a tremendous amount. He did that by executive order. There was no congressional vote on it. He did it. And then Biden rescinded it and threw the border open and then lied about it. Oh, the borders are secure. Do you know that
of course he was lying about it. But if we put up that chart again, okay, we put up that chart again. It was 12 million people here illegally when Trump was in office. Now it's up to 16.2. So it's up by 33 You're talking about two different problems here, right? You're talking about the amount of people here in general and then the amount of people coming over. A lot of the crimes that are being committed and a lot of the problems are by people coming over. Trump says, I'm going to start deporting millions of people on day one. If a standard 747 plane holds 416 people, 10 planes deported migrants daily, it would take 480 days to deport 2 million. That means it would take 12 years or more, 10 flights a day, every day, to deport the 16 million people. Come on.
This isn't going to happen. This is because it denies due process. And as you know, everybody who comes to America, as soon as they step on our soil, is entitled to constitutional protections. It's not going to happen. I'm just telling you.
Right.
But
why
here's the crux of the matter.
Tell everybody he's doing it.
Because
your whole executive order with the post office doesn't give anybody due process.
Sure it does. You're asking them to register, all right, to tell the federal government where you are so the federal government can adjudicate your case. That's no violation of anything. But I just want to make one more point on why this is so out of control. So last Wednesday, and you reported it, 8 migrants from Tajikistan were caught by the FBI and Homeland Security and linked to ISIS. They came across the southern border. Do you realize, Leland? You reported it. I reported on No Spin News. NBC Nightly News, ABC Nightly News, CBS Nightly News didn't mention it. Didn't mention it. So that kind of a corrupt situation with the media helps the Biden administration suppress the horror of this policy. And I'll tell you one more thing, and I hope it doesn't happen. If there is a terror attack before the November vote, Biden loses by a historic margin. It's through. He's done. And Ray and all the others, with the exception of Mayorkas, who's so out there, it's frightening, all the other law enforcement officials say there's a good chance that's going to happen. There's a good chance that we're going to have a terror attack in America because of the open border.
Hey, Bill, I hate to fact check you in real time, but I think it's important. I'm looking here at NBC Nightly News' Facebook page. There's Lester Holt.
No, it's going to be on the Nightly News.
On the people from. It was. This was their package.
Was it on the Nightly News?
Yes. That they then put on the. Let's see here.
No.
This was 6 days ago.
No, my investigators ran it down. And if I'm wrong, I want you after the show because someone will get scolded. But the free networks did not report it that night after it was announced, and neither did MSNBC, and neither did 2 out of the 3 shows on Fox News.
Okay. Well,
I'll submit to you that most Americans don't even know this happened.
We're going to double check it next Monday when we have you on. We'll figure this out.
Right.
We'll figure it out next Monday. But I want to get you on this real quick. Debate rules from CNN. No interrupting, enforced by muting one man's microphone while the other is speaking. Who knows if that works in a studio where people can shout over each other. No help from aides during commercial breaks. No notes. No audience. Who, very quickly, does these rules benefit?
Well, I don't know who they benefit, but you'll notice, Leland, that there is nothing against Joe Biden being led to the podium by Barack Obama. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think that they'll come out together. Mr. Obama would be holding his hand like he did in L.A. and put him in the podium. Cheap shot? Cheap fake?
Cheap shot!
Anyway, look. I'm glad that there isn't any interrupting. But here's why the whole debate a week from Thursday is nonsense. There's no fact check.
Right.
In the whole debate, there's no fact check.
Okay.
And
well,
why bother?
I'm sending you my fact check. You let me know, and on Monday we will adjudicate this. All right. All right. I'll see you soon. Thanks, Bill. Speaking of the election, African-American men aren't coming home to President Biden, despite his best efforts. New polling shows a seismic downtick in black supporters. How's the president going to deal with that? How How does President Biden win back black supporters when we come back? African-American men aren't coming home to President Biden, and that's despite his best efforts and a lot of work. New polling shows a seismic downtick in black voters supporting Mr. Biden versus who supported him in 2020.
In 2020, Joe Biden was getting 86% of the African-American vote. Look at where it is now. It's 70%. That's a 16-point drop, John. Right now, we're careening towards a historic performance for a Republican presidential candidate, the likes of which we have not seen in 6 decades.
With us now, A. Scott Bolden, NewsNation contributor, former chairman of the D.C. Democratic Party. It's good to see you. You're not in person, so I can't yell at you as much. It's disappointing to me, but we'll have you back on set soon. All right, tell me something other than I don't believe the polls and that they're going to come home in November.
Well, I think you're overreacting to black voters leaving the Biden campaign and the Democrats. They haven't left anything. There's still 6 months to go in this race, and they may not be happy with Biden, and they may want to see more from Biden, but that doesn't mean they're not going to vote for Biden eventually. When the choice between Trump and Biden comes down to these voters, right? I predict, as they have done historically, are going to vote for Biden and as they voted for Barack Obama. Your own polling shows that while he may be down 20% with black voters, Biden may be down 20% with black voters, they're not running the Donald Trump because the GOP party doesn't offer them anything. And so what's important? Important is getting black voters to the polls. And you have to have money when you get out the vote. That last 30 days, 15 days, or the last couple of days, and the DNC, or rather the Biden campaign has money to do that. And then lastly, Biden and Harris are going to remind black men and women how important it is for this election, what they get with Biden versus what they don't get with the Republicans, and whether it's reduction of healthcare prices or student loan debt. There's a litany of
or giving away more free money or whatever. And this is interesting for the New York Times because I know you're going to disagree with what I'm about to say. So I'm bringing the receipts early. Black farmers in Georgia cool to Biden, reflecting a bigger challenge. White farmers filed lawsuits to block a debt forgiveness initiative, but the Biden administration is still bearing the blame. But ... You're not going to like what I'm about to say, but I think I'm on to something. The points you just made about student loan forgiveness and healthcare costs and the Green New Deal and DEI in colleges and all that stuff, that works well for upper class and educated blacks. That helps them. It does not serve African Americans in lower middle class and working class in the same way. And those people, particularly young working class men, is who we're seeing move from Biden to Trump, as evidenced by what happened in Detroit, talking about where Joe Biden went versus where Donald Trump went. Take a listen.
President Trump, I'm so humbled that you would be here. President Obama never came to the hood, so to speak, right? President Joe Biden, he went to the big NAACP dinner, but he never came to the hood. So thank you.
All right, now you can tell me I'm wrong if you want.
Well, Biden's come to a lot of places, including lower economic communities, black, white, or poor communities, certainly. And these policies that he has championed do help working class black people, especially black men. But he's got to do a better job of communicating and marketing it to them. And he's got to invest.
Scott, you've been saying he's got to do a better job marketing it for 2 or 3 years.
Well, he needs to do it.
At what point is the marketing not the problem and the product's the problem?
Well, he does have policies in place. He's invested more in economic development with in poor black communities than any other president in the history. And more importantly, unemployment is 3 or 4%. You can't say that's not.
All right, Scott, I'm going to give you the last word, but this is where this is the problem. Those economic programs, they help the wealthy and educated blacks who get the money to do all those programs through grants because they're the ones who have the companies that are minority-owned businesses that the grants go to. The people who actually need the people who need the help, hold on, let me finish. The people who need the help are the ones who are having trouble buying groceries. And that's the problem. That is the working class voters that President Biden's policies haven't helped.
Oh, so you think working class voters just want to get a job and they don't want to be entrepreneurs, and so they don't have access to capital that the Biden
I think they want to be entrepreneurs.
Really?
I think they've got to be able to buy groceries first.
I think that's and that's why they have a job, and that's why entrepreneurship is important. And I think it's pretty narrow thought process on your part to want to talk about African Americans and what they want in these communities, when in reality the messaging may not be there for the Democrats, but the economic and the financial impact and uplift of our communities is certainly there. Yes, you got to do better messaging, and once that happens, right, and he reminds them of what he's done for our communities as a whole, then the hold and the choice between Trump and Biden will take hold. And with the get out the vote, you're going to see Biden get 80+%. You can't discount that simply because of a poll 5 months out and Donald Trump going to a black church where he was completely uncomfortable and trying to con them the way he's conned America.
Okay,
so let's not
Scott,
get
we got to go. Okay, I promise you the last 30 seconds, not the last 30 minutes. All right, we'll see you on set sometime soon. It's good to see you, my friend. Thank you. Israel's prime minister has dissolved their war cabinet and decides to go it alone. It's a time for Netanyahu to leave for the good of his own country. Face a real moral crisis. That country's prime minister is acting as much or more in his own political interests as he is in the best interests of his country. In 5 months, 5 weeks, Netanyahu is going to come address a joint session of Congress, at which point the split in America over Israeli politics will be something like the Grand Canyon. Israel's war cabinet has fallen apart. One of Israel's biggest supporters, longtime friend of Benjamin Netanyahu, former Ambassador John Bolton, is with us now. Mr. Ambassador, I appreciate it. Netanyahu's got more lives politically than a cat does, as you well know. Is his time finally running out?
Well, I think ultimately, obviously, it will. It does for every politician. But, Israeli public opinion polls over the last several weeks have shown Netanyahu's approval ratings going up. And I think the breakup of the war cabinet may work to his benefit as well. People will think that Gantz, one of the leaders of the opposition, really did so for his own political benefit. And I think as a result of U.S. pressure, and I think the Israelis, not unlike Americans, don't react well when somebody else tells them to change their government. So I think it's complicated, but the fact is the Israeli policy that's being pursued was adopted by the full war cabinet, a kind of government of national unity, and that's the destruction of Hamas's political and military capabilities. And I think that's what sticks in a lot of people's craws in this country, but it's what Israel said it wanted to do, and I think that still has, inside Israel, personalities aside, that objective still has overwhelming support.
Right, and there's an irony here into how the Biden administration is playing this, right? Because you and I were both there. We remember when the Obama administration tried to divide the Israeli public against Netanyahu and criticize Netanyahu, and all it did was make him stronger. So now we're doing the same thing all over again. But I think that it brings up a different question in terms of the policy, right? Is Benjamin Netanyahu doing things in his own political best interests, or is he doing it in the best interests of Israel, including but not limited to sitting outside Rafah for 3 months? Because the longer he stays on as prime minister, and the longer there's a war, and the longer he's seen standing up to Joe Biden, the less likely he is to get prosecuted, or the continued prosecution of him on corruption charges.
Well, look, I think the delay in the offensive in Rafah was a huge mistake for Israel. And while it may have had the effect of prolonging Bibi's hold on the prime ministership 3 months, I don't think he felt that the delay was good for Israel. I think in any circumstance like this, Israel would have been well advised to resist American pressure and finish the job. If you can't deal effectively with Hamas, how is Israel going to have the bandwidth to deal with what looks to be increasing threat from Hezbollah in the north? They've been rocketed from Hezbollah almost since October 7th to begin with, and Iran may be turning up the temperature on the northern border as they did in Gaza. So I think it was in Israel's interest, frankly, in the U.S. interest, for Israel to finish the job in Gaza. But that's not what Biden wanted, and that's not what the opposition to Netanyahu and Israel wanted. They wanted the delay. They wanted a ceasefire. They wanted to get the hostages out. You know, we know now pretty convincingly Hamas never had enough hostages to make the kind of deal that the White House was talking about. So I think there's been bungling all along, but I think the reason for the delay was not that Bibi thought it benefited his political well-being, but because of the unbelievable pressure that the White House and its political allies in this country were putting on Netanyahu.
So how is it that Netanyahu has become such the boogeyman for the political left, and even now sometimes the mid-center, the center-left in America?
Well, look, it has been a straight-through line from the Clinton administration to the Obama administration to the Biden administration. They don't like Bibi Netanyahu. And I think, there are probably lots of reasons. I guess the one I would say is number one is that in many respects, Bibi is so good at American politics that he's run rings around 3 successive Democratic presidents, and they can't stand it. I understand why they're angry, but the fact is the positions that Netanyahu takes, I think, are positions that are in the best interest of the United States. Netanyahu almost alone in Israel has seen that the central actor here, the central threat to Israel in contemporary times, is the Islamic Revolution in Iran. And until that regime is overthrown, until its nuclear program is destroyed, until its capability of equipping and arming and training and giving intelligence to these terrorists is ended, the Middle East never is going to have a chance at peace and stability. This is not a war of Israel against the Gazans or against Hezbollah. It's Iran against Israel. That's what's going on here.
Well, I think, Mr. Ambassador, you very rightly bring this back to where the root of the problem, as some people like to discuss, which is Iran, throughout Israel and into the United States as well. Mr. Ambassador, it's always good to see you. We'll check in soon, sir. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm not good at most things, especially stuff around the house. I can change a light bulb. That's about it. But at least I know you melt the cheese on the burger when the burger is almost off the grill. All right. New York Senator Chuck Schumer posted this on social media for Father's Day. Here he is, a real man of the people, with a raw hamburger, it still looks frozen, and a piece of cheese on the grill. It's difficult to see if the grill is even lit or how the hot dogs got the char marks on them. Our family has lived in an apartment building for all our years, but my daughter and her wife just bought a house with a backyard, and for the first time, we're having a barbecue with hot dogs and hamburgers on the grill. So maybe he was being honest. Maybe it was his first time. And then managing to make it all worse, once he got called out, rather than owning it, he deleted the post. Schumer's not the only one. New York Governor Kathy Hochul got a lot of heat, pun intended, for grilling in an all-white dress back in 2020, or acting like she was grilling. Then there's the former governor of Ohio, John Kasich, in New York eating pizza, yes, with a fork. So to be fair, this isn't about the politicians being out of touch. You can't really blame them for not knowing better, and maybe Schumer was being honest. This was his first time on a grill. He'll learn. But you can blame them for staff members that should know better. Presidential debate will be all about defense. New reporting shows Democrats have a secret plan, quote unquote, to replace Joe Biden. If defense fails, the author of Replacing Biden joins us next. 42-second video of President Biden in Los Angeles on Saturday night has the entire nation once again debating whether he's physically and mentally fit, more mentally, to run for a second term. In the clip, you appear to see the former President Obama, lead Joe Biden off stage. A wider angle shows the first clip shared widely on social media. Mr. Biden is still standing there stiffly, times he is applauding, then he turns. You can see him standing as if he's looking at someone, or maybe he's not. He stops gesturing, come back to him, he's still standing there. Well, you can argue whether this puts it in context or just makes it worse after Obama leads him off. Comes after dozens of moments, to be fair, where the president appears confused or frozen before leaving an event. Charlie Spearing writes in thedailymail.com, secret Democratic plot to replace Biden revealed. How Clinton, Obama, Pelosi, and Schumer will topple the aging president and when they will do it. Charlie is with us now, cover politics for the Daily Mail. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the program. Read your article. We like to say, I think it would be fair to say, important if true. And I guess my question is this a plan that exists, or is this a plan of what would happen if there was a plan?
It's a little bit of both, as you can imagine. I'm sure you've had the conversations with Democrats behind the scenes that grow daily worried about the signs of the president's age and mental decline, most importantly, his age. The reason why they're not talking, the reason why they're not springing up in fear and publicly calling for Biden to exit is because they know that at some point the top leaders of the party will step in when they feel like it's necessary.
Okay, so there's no independent reporting that Clinton, Obama, Pelosi, or Schumer have talked to anyone that you've talked to about their plans.
Right. They are saying that if the worst comes to worst and Joe Biden has to step down. They being
Democratic strategists.
Democratic strategists, if the worst comes to worst and that they need Joe Biden to step down. And the family, there's two things that'll happen. Either the family can step in and do the right thing and convince Joe that it's time to step down, or the top four leaders of the Democratic Party will have to be united if this is going to be successful. It has to be former President Bill Clinton, former President Barack Obama, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and current Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. They have to present a united front to come to the president and his family and say, look, this is why you need to step down because you're no longer tenable as a candidate. Right now, they're not ready to do it.
No, I mean, clearly they haven't done it. I think, you point out, what about Jill Biden, who seems to be in many ways a puppeteer here? But, no secret that Obama and Clinton don't particularly like Joe Biden, or vice versa. There's not a lot of love lost there. But I think it's interesting how Republicans are playing this, right? And this is Howard Kurtz of Fox News slamming Republicans and even other media organizations, including some on the right and all on the right, for how they are treating a lot of the videos of President Biden. Take a listen.
The RNC posted a misleading video titled, "What is Biden Doing?" appearing to indicate the president straying off from the assembled leaders, talking to no one. But the Trump campaign followed up by accusing Joe Biden of wandering around like a brain-dead zombie. Nothing like a good way to raise money to push those narratives.
There's enough videos of President Biden acting, to be generous, strangely, and that require explanation. Why do Republicans keep sort of trying to push it even farther and then get their hand caught in the misleading editing cookie jar?
Well, that's absolutely what Republicans do, and Democrats are doing the same thing on the opposite side. If you look at their social media profiles, they're also clipping Trump out of context and putting it out. And you expect that from campaigns, but certainly in this case, it's up for the media to take a look at these clips, offer in context. Look, you add an extra half inch of context in that video frame, the president's still wandering off where he's not supposed to be, enough to where the Italian prime minister reaches out to guide him back. That's kind of what we saw on Saturday. You saw President Obama reaching out to guide Joe Biden off the stage, either out of friendship or out of general concern. But there were definitely moments.
Look, and we know that, to be fair, President Biden now has walkers with him out to Marine One. So there's more context for him having people around to help guide him. Charlie, keep doing your work. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. The Surgeon General wants warning labels slapped on social media platforms like cigarettes. Dr. Drew Pinsky is with us on why it won't work. Surgeon General thinks slapping a warning label on social media will have kids stop scrolling. Good luck with that. We know social media is bad. There's a 6% rise in teens seriously considering suicide the last 10 years or so. kids who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media are twice as likely to be anxious or depressed. Half of all teens say it makes them feel bad about their bodies. 93% are on it and say they can't stop. It's like being addicted. Surgeon General is putting it on the list of things that come with warning labels that can kill you. Things like cigarettes, pills, things that explode easily, machinery that can chop you up. Dr. Drew Pinsky, Chief Medical Board member and popular television host, is with us now. Good to see you, sir. This is what I can't figure out. If you are a parent who gives your child alcohol and cigarettes at 15 years old, you may go to jail for that, but certainly you would be shunned by society for that. Yet, you are almost expected as a parent to hand your child a smartphone at 12 and allow them to download Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, and God knows what else the cool kids are doing, TikTok.
No, it's exactly right. I mean, the data you put up there is exactly correct. My God, the age of exposure to pornography has dropped down now to 8 to 9 because of these phones. And it is not just the phone you hand your kids. Of course, it's also what the kids show them at school and their other social environments. Even if you prevented them from access or allow them to have a phone, they still have buddies, they still have friends. They're going to be showing them these phones. Now, the question of what to do in terms of putting a warning label on social media, on one hand, great. I'm glad they're moving that direction. I've got something to say about that. On the other, here we are again with government regulators using their authority to put in place policies that have no foundation in the medical literature. There is nothing that says that adding this warning label to the phone or the media is going to do anything. They've not done the research to see whether it's worth a damn. So it's just like it's just like 6 feet distancing all over again. So I hate that. on the other hand, I have said for years that we will one day look upon these screens the way we feel about tobacco. So this is a step down the road in how we address the tobacco issue. If you remember, the first thing, and it was controversial, was adding a warning label to the boxes. So I kind of like the road we're going down. I just don't trust the government to do it properly. I'm sick of these arbitrary policies they put in place without evidence to support what they're doing.
A lot to unpack there. I love the 6 feet, reference, and the point that sort of we're in the Wild West here, right? This is the Surgeon General on the Today Show. Take a listen.
Many of them say that they can't get off it because the platforms are often designed to maximize how much time our kids are spending on them, and despite the fact that many of them are experiencing harm. Yeah. That has to change. It's why last year I called on Congress to put in place safety standards like we did for cars and other products to make social media safer. It is not okay for us to put the entire burden of managing this on parents.
Yeah. So this is where you and I differ, I think, Dr. Drew, is it's not okay.
I bet we don't.
It's not okay to put but it's not okay to put it all on parents. Yes, it is okay to put it all on parents, and you're right.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Johnny may go off to school and somebody may show him Snapchat with a picture of a naked girl on it. Fine. Lord knows how members of my generation were educated in things. Okay. But that doesn't mean, in my generation, there were kids smoking pot at school. That doesn't mean my parents gave me joints and said, hey, because Johnny's smoking pot at school, Lucky, you need to be able to smoke pot at school. So I get that it's not an end-all be-all, it's not a panacea, but why would the Surgeon General say it's not okay to put it all on parents? It should be parents who give their kids social media should be treated like parents who give their kids tobacco products, right?
I don't disagree with you, but getting back to tobacco, it was a slow evolution till we got to where we were not allowing parents to do so. But guess what? It took us empowering parents to do what they needed to do, educating parents to do their job, and then enlisting the community and the school to help the parents do so. Guess what? Remember, they used to allow smoking into high schools. And then they started allowing it in certain places. And then they finally got rid of it. And we have to get to the point. It's got to be the whole community, or the kids are going to be exposing themselves to one another the material on the screen as though they were their own screens. It's not going to work unless you have everybody involved, everybody in agreement. A warning label is not likely to do much. My sincere hope is it gets us down the road to where we are putting it on the parents, and the parents understand what it is they need to do.
Is the Surgeon General, and I think about this in the form, if you want to just link it back to cigarettes, right? Big tobacco became the boogeyman. You know, you think about the CEOs of Big Tobacco, they were almost portrayed as evil-like individuals. Is it time for us to start portraying Mark Zuckerberg as evil? Obviously, the Chinese with TikTok as evil, that they are truly preying upon and profiting from harming and knowingly harming kids?
Well, aren't you making an interesting point here? That's a very interesting notion. Again, the government should be working on educating and raising awareness and helping people get to the point where they understand what's going on. Most people don't understand what's happening or what the consequences are going to be, and we don't even fully know the consequences of all this yet. But it is interesting, you know, something like, I'm not saying that these are evil people need to be portrayed as such, but isn't that an interesting way to approach this? So it's just interesting to me. If that's what it's going to take, we have, you know, desperate times. We're going to have to do something to unravel this mess. And the companies themselves don't seem to be taking it, doing the right thing.
Perhaps our viewers will share their thoughts with us on social media, at Leland Vittert, at Dr. Drew. It is good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Leland.
All right. Quick update from our A1 segment with Bill O'Reilly. We did find the clip of NBC Nightly News covering the 8 illegal immigrants who came to the United States and were later arrested in an ISIS plot. There is the screen grab. Mr. O'Reilly reports that he has figured out what his mistake was and will report to all of us dutifully on Monday when we see him again. In the meantime, here's Cuomo.